Hello, DCAC members. This is Jake with our 2020 Enrollment and Demographic Report. It's actually broken into two different types of reports. The first report is the enrollment report, which is all based on October 1st data, and the demographic report provides further data, but that is actually from mid-October to later October. So you'll see some different numbers when you look at our total enrollment trends. But this report allows us to see who is in our schools so that we can serve them well. It also allows us to track changes over time and adjust as needed. It's an important report that we use as an anchor document for many other reports that we provide to the community and the school board. Our first slide provides a look at our total enrollment trend from 2003. You can see the line of the enrollment trend from that time. Please note that in 2013, we had a steep enrollment increase as we added Harambee Elementary to the Roseville Area School District. And again, you'll notice the enrollment total there is going to be different from some of the other slides because this is October 1st enrollment data, and the other slides will be in the demographic report from mid to late October. You can see that the total overall trend is down from the past year. We had families, especially at elementary, that chose other options that provided a full in-person learning while we provided distance learning in this fall. Also, we found that some families were holding their kindergarten students back for another year during the pandemic. This provides our enrollment by grade level. We saw that our biggest changes were at elementary, especially at our kindergarten and first grades. We found our K enrollment was down about 30 students from the past year, and first grade was down about 17 students. Our middle level grades were down a bit as well. We had a large 8th grade class that this year moved on into the large 9th grade class, so you can see that reflected there. And our 9 through 12 numbers are very similar to the previous year. Our enrollment really matters because it provides us with our financial as well. The students that we have are how we actually get our funding for our students. So seeing these enrollment dips are a little of a concern for us, but they're also reflective throughout the state as well. So again, this is looking at our K through 6 enrollment trend from 2008 to 2020. You can see again that has the enrollment decline, especially from last year 2019 to this year 2020. Again, we had many families that were seeking a full in-person option. Also with K students being held back for another year, we're down about 100 students over that previous year. This is our 7-12 enrollment, looking at that same timeline. We're down about 45 students from last year, but up overall from 2018. This is looking at our enrollment by our building, and you can see that this has a 5-year trend to it. Little Canada, you can see, had pretty steady and increasing for the past few years as they were building that DLI program, but we should now see those flatten out as they have. And you can see all of our schools were down this year with the exception of Harambee and Parkview. Those were up a little bit from the previous year after declines over the past few years. One of the causes for Harambee's increase, I believe, is the addition of Harambee's. They've been added as a turnaround art school and some great leadership under Principal DeLon Smith. So this is looking at our average class size for our elementaries across our buildings. The far right column shows 2020-21 school year on the top and the 2019-2020 school year on the bottom for comparison. Unfortunately, we've had to increase our class sizes as a part of budget reductions over the past 2 years. So this slide is a look at the at the middle grades for Roseville Area Middle School and then grades 7 and 8 from Parkview Center School. This provides a look at our subject areas and also the last 2 years of data from 2020 and 2019 based on our October 1st numbers. The average class size did go down, and that has to do with the decrease of our large 8th grade class that moved through our system into 9th grade this year. This last one is looking at our grades 9 through 12. And this provides those average class sizes for students just at Roseville Area High School. This does not include Fairview Alternative High School, but you can see we maintained about the same sizes from last year. This slide compares Roseville area schools to our Metro EXU, which is a survey from the Metropolitan Educational Cooperative Service Unit, which provides regional workshops, data, professional development, and other services to the 7-county metro area. There are 33 participating districts that are represented in this data, all within that 7-county metro area. And the data is from the 2019-2020 school year. It's always a year behind as they gather data during the current school year. So this data shows our elementary data, or our comparison to other elementaries within that survey. And you can see that our averages stayed fairly even with the other districts in the metro. This is looking at our same survey data, but this is comparing us with our middle grades to those in the metro area, again, that completed the survey. We find that Roseville is above in most of our subject areas compared to that Metro EXU average. This next slide is continuing with that same survey data, but comparing our high school courses to those in the metro area, again, that completed the survey. And you can see our class sizes are above most of those compared with other districts in this survey. We're going to move on to the demographics section of our report. And it actually has 3 different sections. There is a race ethnicity section, English learner section, and finally the educational benefits participation, or also is commonly referred to the free and reduced price meals program. So just a note on some of our data sources. The data is pulled from various sources in this demographic part of the report. And you'll see the data source that's reflected in the lower left-hand corner of the slide if you're wondering where we pulled that from. And it is pretty significant report to pull with a lot of data that comes from us from a lot of different areas. So appreciate all of the work that went into pulling all of the data as well. So this slide it provides a breakdown by race and ethnicity. This is data that parents provide us, or families provide for us when they're enrolling their students. It's provided by the 7 categories that the federal government uses and we align to now as well. And you can see that American Indian students make up just less than 0.5% of our student population. Asian students make up about 19% of our population. Hispanic students represent 14%. Black students are about 18%. White students are 41%, and students who identify as multiracial make up about 8% of our student body. For this data, students are only included once for their primary racial identity. And again, this is for our K through 12 students only. It doesn't include our pre-K students. And this slide looks at our trend data for the last 14 years of our district enrollment by race and ethnicity. Up until the 2017-2018 school year, we only used the 5 categories by race, which aligned with the Minnesota racial identification, but that changed with the whole state in that 2018-19 school year. So you can see that break in the line from 2017-18 to 2018-19 as we expanded to include the multiracial students as well. You can see that our trend shows that our white students continue to decrease as our number of students of color have increased over time. This matches with our community demographics as the Roseville Area Schools community continues to diversify racially and ethnically. We definitely see this as an asset to our community and our schools that reflect our wider world. Specifically, we have seen in the past year an increase in our Black students and students who identify as multiracial. This next slide provides a really big 20-year picture of data, and you can see the significant changes that have occurred over time up until today. From the 1999 to 2000 school year, we had 82% of our students identifying as white, with 18% of our students of color. And that has changed now to 59% of our students identifying as white and 41% students of color within our current year. There's been a lot of turnover in our housing stock over those past 2 decades, with more younger families that are moving into our school district, which is more reflective of a broader racial diversity as well. This next slide is data that's pulled from the Minnesota Department of Education on the Minnesota report card, and you can get that at any time by going to the Minnesota Department of Education website. Please note that this is actually October 1st data, but it comes from the past school year, so the 2019-2020 school year, but it's the most updated data from MDE, which just gives you a snapshot of all of your building race and ethnicity data. So you can look that up anytime. Again, this is a current snapshot that's used by our buildings for some data purposes as well as MDE. And hopefully they'll update that data soon. This slide is looking at a 3-year trend based on the percent of students of color by building. And you can see that there's a lot of variability within our sites. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in this next slide. We have seen our racial diversity grow from our elementary into our secondary. And you can see that about 10 years ago, it was really trending differently for our elementary schools, where that was changing faster than our secondary schools. But as those students have gotten older and grown up within our system, we've seen a narrowing of that trend where they're almost exactly identical. So this is looking at our, this provides our surrounding districts based on our Minnesota Department of Education report card data. These are not our comparable districts, but they are our surrounding districts. And this just shows the variability of the districts that are close by Roseville, especially in terms of their race and ethnicity percentages. Again, this is data that comes from the Minnesota Department of Education. And the most recently reported data was the 2019-2020 school year, so these have changed a bit since then, obviously. We do use 2 of the districts as comparison districts, which include West St. Paul, Mendota Heights, Eagan, and North St. Paul, Maplewood, Oakdale. But again, you can see the variability of the districts close by in Roseville. We're going to switch over to some of our data for English learners. We are trying to do better as we reach out to our families in other languages. We now have a language line for families to call in to us. We also have the interpreter line that all of our staff have access to as well. So as we call out to families, we can get interpreters through the Dialogue One app for any language that we have. And we also have a line now for families calling into us that provides an interpreter for families that are calling into our buildings. Usually it's our front office staff that would get that. We're also hosting Facebook Live sessions that are providing information to our top 5 languages, and those are interpreted live as well. So this slide provides a trend line of the percent of students who are English learners in our district. You can see that our English enrollment is holding steady over time. We are about at the same percent as we were over the past year. And we'll continue on. This is a look at our data for our English learners by building. And you can again see that great variability that we have at our different sites. So that 15% is obviously that average overall, but that variability is pretty large throughout our sites. This is a look at our EL school trends over the past 5 years. You can see that most of our schools are within about 2 or 3% of their past year. The numbers are also lower by our elementary schools. So you can see that, I would let you know that a few students, student changes over time can really impact that data. So the lower numbers of EL students within a school, if a couple students move out or move on to the middle school or RAMS, students can have a great impact. Some of those numbers can, because they're smaller numbers at sites. So just explaining some of that variability between some of our years. And we do also in the upper grades have some changes within there as well, as we know that a lot of our students, EL students, are exiting the EL program. And then we also have fewer students that are coming in with significant life or interrupted formal education, especially those students who are refugees from other countries, as policies have changed within the United States. This is a look at our kind of language overall in our Roseville area schools. You can see our total number of all of our students, and then about 82 languages other than English that are spoken within the home. So about 30% of our students speak another language within the home. And then you can see that over 1,100 students that we serve for EL. Just because they speak another language in the home doesn't always mean that they need English learner services within our schools. So you can see that. But we'll look at our next slide, which tells us our top 10 languages spoken at home. The top 5 are actually about 67% of our English language learners. So we provide interpretation for those top 5 languages, which include Spanish, Hmong, Somali, Nepali, and Karen, which is actually Saga, is actually a Karen language. And we do have some interpretation that is done in Oromo and Amharic as well. This is actually the whole list of all the home languages that are spoken within our schools, or maybe many of those. I don't know if we can fit all 82 onto here. I didn't count, but this is what it looks like for this year. But you can see that the number of students by each of those language areas who speak that language at home. And you'll notice that Spanish is the largest change over time that we have seen, followed by Nepali and Somali students. And the last section of this is our education benefits participation. It's also commonly referred to as students who qualify for free and reduced price meals, and it can be an indicator of families that may be economically challenged. This first slide provides a trend of data over time, so 14 years of data. You can see that we have increased by 10 percentage points over that time span. However, it's trended down over the past few years. You'll also see a large increase from that 2009-2010 to that 2010-2011 data, as these are lagging indicators for families that struggled after the Great Recession of 2008. And even though that it's been many years since we haven't, since then, we haven't seen our numbers recover as quickly as the economy overall has recovered. And I am concerned about the current pandemic and the impact that this may have on students and families. And we may see a steep increase next year in our families and students who qualify for free or reduced price meals or educational benefits. This provides a snapshot of our look at our sites. Again, the district average is 43%, but there is a lot of variability within our sites. You can see that ranges from 25% all the way up to 73%. This slide provides a look at our educational benefits over time, and provides a look at how those sites have changed over those last 14 years. In the middle, the district line is the gold one with triangles. And you can see that the schools that are above the district line and schools that are below that line, again, showing that variability within our district. And there's even some different patterns that you can see within the school trend and how those demographics have changed, and how those schools have experienced that change over time as well. And that brings us to our last slide, which we will have a chance for questions and comments and discussion at our DCAC meeting that is coming up. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.